Science and religion, are they compatible? Is one right and the other wrong? Are they both right? Or are they both wrong? Well, science tends to deal with the physical, and religion deals with the non-physical or the spiritual. Can science know all the answers about how the world works? Or are there fundamental questions that science cannot answer? And religion, does it have all the answers? If so, why are there so many different religions that follow different practices? But are the underlying principle in all religions, i.e. that there is something beyond the physical, something spiritual or something of the mind that transcends the physical? Can science explain that? Or does it exist? Well, there was an experiment done in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, Laurentian University, by Persinger. He took students, and unbeknownst to what the experiment was about, put helmets on their heads with magnets to measure the brain waves. He started off with hockey helmets. And then he put them in an isolation booth devoid of any electromagnetic radiation, ambient radiation, and devoid of all the sense of sight, sound, and touch, and observed what was happening with the brain waves. He found that the left brain shut down and the right brain of the students became more active. Then when he brought the students out and asked them their experience, 4 out of 5 said they experienced out-of-body experiences, where they felt came out of their body, and could observe their body from afar. They saw white tunnels of light. Some said that they felt that someone was behind them or beside them. Others said they saw demonic creatures or figures. Some said they saw God. And as a result, it's been nicknamed the God helmet. So there appears to be another realm, if you like, a dimension outside of the physical. And this is, time and time again, there's documented evidence where people who've had near-death experiences have experienced the same sort of phenomena. For instance, there was one Australian biker. He was, he was trying out for the Olympics, and he was hit by I believe a bus or a truck, wiped out almost half of his body. So he had to go through several operations, and he had several out-of-body experiences. And he felt euphoric. He felt that he didn't want to come back again because the experience was so enjoyable. No pain. And regardless of what culture, what time, what language, there have been a multitude of similar experiences, all, as I say, similar or the same sort of thing, not dependent on their religion or not dependent on their language or culture. So can science explain that? No. Maybe it will say it doesn't exist. Now, science also can't understand a lot of the phenomena that goes on. Like a scientific fact, Well, it's only scientific fact, or if you like, a theory, a true theory, or a law, if there's enough evidence to support it. And if there's one piece of evidence that is contrary to it, it doesn't comply, then you have to either say the fact, the law, or the theory is wrong. Or you have to modify it to incorporate the new piece of evidence. Or you have to say, well, maybe this theory or law applies, but only under restricted circumstances in only some areas. And then often, what you should do is really take your hypothesis back and test it in the lab to prove it is true, and have someone else corroborate that from a different lab in a different scientist. Often you hear someone, even scientists, say, "Oh, this is a theory." Well, really, they should be saying this is a hypothesis yet to be proven, because they have not had the observation or the empirical evidence to call it a true theory or a law or a scientific fact. And there's a multitude of things that happen, that so-called scientific facts that change because a new piece of evidence has come along. And that is the history of science. So many things once were considered true and are now not considered true. So in one sense, you try to get closer to the truth, but you can never get the absolute truth, because there can always be some other evidence or observation or deduction, if you like, to throw out that fact. So as I say, science really deals with more of the physical and breaks things down. It's a reductionism. It breaks down what things are made of, and then how those parts and bits work together. For instance, you are made of 65% water. And water is a molecule containing two atoms of hydrogen and one of oxygen, H2O. And you have more hydrogen in you, hydrogen atoms, than anything else. So you are more than 50% hydrogen, at least your atoms. And hydrogen is a quite explosive element. The Hindenburg airship blew up because it was filled with hydrogen. And now in airships they have to use helium. It's the second lightest element after hydrogen. But your molecules are made up of atoms, and you have more atoms than H2O. You also have carbon, and that's an important atom for you, because it can combine with atoms of other elements and itself to form large molecules important for you in most complex living life. Your atoms are composed of neutrons and protons. Normally, there's as many neutrons as protons, and as many electrons as protons. One exception being hydrogen, it only has one proton and one electron. But the nucleus of your atom, composed of protons and neutrons, is the size of that is to the size of the atom, overall atom, as a speck of dust is to the size of a football field. So you are